once again to EWTN's Bookmark. I'm Doug Keck, your host. Our special guest and friend is Father Wilfred Emeh, the author of New Media and the Christian Family, available through the EWTN Religious Catalog, EWTNRC.com. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Right. It's great to have you here. And it's funny to say that you're a local priest at this point in time.
Yes, I have been at Our Lady of Sorrows Church here in Birmingham, Alabama for the past 3 years.
Right. And you actually thank several people who work here, or families of people, the Gagnons, who are related to here. And I saw Michelle Johnson's name mentioned in there as well, our communications director. Exactly.
You know, the first time I was exposed to EWTN was when I came here for my internship.
Right, exactly.
And from there, I got to know many people
What
in this
year
network.
was that, when you were here from Santa Cruz?
That's 2009.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so it's been quite a while.
Quite a while.
And OLS has become like a real family to me.
Okay.
I know many of the families. Sometimes we go out for activities.
Right.
And so I was really supposed to thank them because through them, I got to know more about the meaning of the church as a family of God.
Well, it's interesting because you say these are experiences from the USA and Africa, and that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah.
It's not only your own perspective of coming here to the United States and observing it, but it actually is looking at the way media impacts both sides of the ocean effectively. And you actually did a survey, right?
Yes.
In the United States and also in Cameroon, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
Where did the idea of doing this come from? Was this something you're studying over here, you needed to write a thesis or a doctoral dissertation or something, and you decided to write this, or where did this come from?
Interestingly, it came from a cultural shock. When I came here, I had the opportunity to visit nursing homes and hospices.
Right, and you talk about that in the book, right.
So during that time, I had the privilege to talk to some of the residents in those nursing homes and all that. And listening to them, I learned that some of them were there because they didn't have a family. Others were there because they had maybe 1 or 2 children and they have preceded them in death. And others were there for different reasons. And then it occurred to me that in Africa, we don't have nursing homes. It is an institution that is unknown in Africa. So our elderly people live with us. Even when they are sick, we take care of them. So I started reflecting on African families and American families. And then, you know, in Africa, there's a proverb. It takes an entire village to raise a child. So when I was growing up, for example, you don't need to obtain permission from my dad to discipline me. Once I do something wrong and you're in my neighborhood, you got to discipline me. And that's how it happens. And so everybody cares for everybody. We are like one big family in Africa. And even with the elders, once there is an elder in the neighborhood, everybody cares about him. How did it sleep today? Is he okay? And things like that. So it's one big family.
What do you see from your experience here, why you think there's such a difference? Obviously, many people have talked about why, you know, with the kind of cutting-edge, youth-oriented technology and perspective in the United States, where age and wisdom are kind of downplayed and seen as old hat, as opposed to seeing wisdom, which I'm assuming has something also to do with the respect for the elderly in Africa.
Yes, I believe, first of all, the African culture is that which celebrates life, and we believe so much in community. Families are closely knit and all that. But here in America, there is so much individualism, there is consumerism, there is materialism, and people focus more on maybe how much they can make and their individual interests, whereas we are concerned with the community interest. And another thing that really made me to write this book, the first time I went into a restaurant, first of all, restaurant is not part of my culture in Cameroon. We always eat at home as a family. I walked into a restaurant, I noticed a family that had occupied a table, but everyone was glued to his or her phone. They were
similar to the cover of your book.
Exactly.
Right?
So I said, there is an irony. It's like people live together separately, living together separately. So that's it. Yeah. And then another thing was the changing views of marriage. You know, coming from Africa, where we know about the traditional meaning of marriage, a man and a woman, and that's the family. And if you look at my book, I've told the story of a modern family. And I related the joke of a bishop who was quizzing children before confirmation. And he asked, what is matrimony? A little girl puts up her hand and says, matrimony is a place where people suffer for their sins for a time before they can go to heaven. Then the pastor says, no, That's not matrimony, that's purgatory. The bishop said, don't stop her. What do you and I know about marriage? So there are several dynamics. The traditional view of marriage is changing because of the influence of the new media. That is what they watch in modern families.
And even when you talk about Modern Family as being the television show in the United States,
a television
which
show,
you also talk about.
Yes, that does not promote the values of perseverance, of patience, of endurance, the meaning of love. And that is the heart of marriage. Yes. Right
now, in the foreword is written by our good friend, Dr. David Anders, the host of our wonderful program called The Communion. How did you end up asking Dr. Anders to write the foreword?
Yes. Thank you for that question. I would really wish to appreciate Dr. Anders in a very special way. Dr. Anders is a friend and a brother to me, and he has known me as a priest and as a researcher. Actually, when I started my research, he encouraged me a lot, and he even gave me some books on studies regarding family and evangelization in America. So Dr. Anders is a good man, and I thought there was no better person to write my foreword than Dr. Anders. And after reading my work, actually he read through my work and he made some very important proposals to me. He said, Father, you didn't talk a lot about biological intact families that have been proven scientifically to be the best. And so I went and did more research.
You went back and added some of that material.
And that is where I found out that social sciences have proven that biological intact families so far are the best for our society. It's not just a matter of the church. So studies have been done to show that children will grow up.
But that doesn't get promoted because that doesn't support the overall cultural perspective.
Very, very unfortunate, because the mistake people make is, oh, that is the Catholic doctrine. Oh, that is the church. No, it's not a matter of the church. It's a matter of the society.
Well, because Catholic teaching comes out of natural law.
Yes.
And so it takes what is actually true.
Exactly. So the studies show that where children grow up in biologically intact families, compared to maybe a single parent. In fact, but we do not want to downplay single parents who make the effort to raise up their family, because like I said in my book, there is no perfect family. Every family has knots to untie time and again. But sciences, research has proven that where children grow up in biologically intact families, they are socially, mentally, and physically more stable. They are less likely to get involved in delinquent behavior, in drugs abuse, in alcoholism, and all that. So it's a wide range of studies that have been done.
Well, sometimes people take fact as a criticism. And you say, listen, I'm just telling you this is what's true. How that relates to you is a wholly different situation, which is where our Lord will gauge us all by the gifts we're given. So we're all not the same. We all not achieve our St. Paul talked about it. We all have different gifts to give to the body of Christ. We're not all the same.
And one thing is, I'm so happy that young people in this country are becoming more aware of the truth.
And you're seeing that? Is that in the surveys that you've done, as well as the research you've done with like the Pew studies and things like that, looking into that information?
This was an experience I had in the classroom. During one of my courses, 2 young girls, they said they have not watched television for like 6 months because they are tired of the junk on TV. They were talking about what we call today breaking news. They say everything is negative and all that, and people don't want to debate. Yeah, the Catholic Church, when we talk of dogma, some people feel that dogma is something that we just throw out there. Dogma is reasoned truth. We have premises, and then we'll come out with a conclusion. That is what I've proven in my book. Scientifically, this traditional form of a family is what our society needs today.
Well, many people believe that my opinion or how I feel about something is just as valid as something that maybe has been determined by the great minds and spiritual leaders of the world for 2,000 years, and that, well, I disagree, so mine's as valid as what you're saying.
Exactly, and that is really unfortunate for our society. And you know all the kinds of problems we are facing today in society. Children are exposed to some kind of shows and all that don't help them to build their personality. And yes.
Now, Dr. Anders mentions in here 2 things. One, he says, we meet American and Cameroonian children anxious to fit into their new entertainment culture, alienated from both their parents and their culture. Now, we would sit and say, well, certainly we understand with Americans, but even in Cameroon?
So what Dr. Anders was saying there is Cameroonians who come here, we have migrations and immigration. Yes, so when they come here, they go through a lot of conflict.
They get enculturated into our culture.
They get into this culture where in your neighborhood, you are not as free as you are in Cameroon. You don't have friends as you do in Cameroon. Life is far, far easier in Cameroon. My experience here has been that you parents, you got a lot of work to do. You are involved in the activities of your kids. You have to take them out for games, for this and that. That's not the case in Cameroon. We take care of ourselves in our neighborhoods. And because of these too much activities that you are involved with your children, I came up with I say, this is a mom's voicemail. If you need me to pick you up from the soccer game, press 1. If you are bleeding, press 2. If you need to tell your teacher that you didn't do your piano assignment, do it yourself and things like that.
Okay.
So I know you people are involved in a lot of activities, but it is really easier in Cameroon. So when they come here, life is really difficult. So some of them have to go online in order to communicate back home.
Right, to stay connected.
To stay connected, and that is the positive side of it.
Well, here's another question I was saying, and if you agree, he is highly regarded as one of the best preachers in our diocese. Oh, that's you he's talking about. Okay.
Yes, yes.
So what's your perspective on his judgment in that case?
Yes, so far, the parishioners of Our Lady of Sorrows, they have really encouraged me to write out my homilies.
Right.
They say I touch their lives. Many of them have come to me personally. They have written letters to me. And the best part of it is even the students in Our Lady of Sorrows School, they're like, Father, your homilies are very meaningful. So the secret is simple. I try to connect the gospel readings to daily life. I get to know them and would talk about things that happen around us. So I thank Dr. David for that compliment, and I want to assure the parishioners of Our Lady of Sorrows that I will continue to do my best to bring the word of God to them.
Well, I think he's right on the mark. And I think all the people who experienced you while you were here as an intern would agree from EWTN. As we get into the book, you talk about the cultural differences I faced. Really struck me when I heard it, an anecdote of a man who asked a priest to offer a mass for his deceased dog. Why was that such a shock for you?
Because in Africa, we don't keep pets. In Cameroon, we don't keep pets. So when I came here, I saw how much people cherish their pets. They owe their pets a good life. And some people, pets are the only children that they have.
Right.
And I have come to appreciate it. Yeah, because St. Francis of Assisi tells us about the love of nature and every creature. So for me, I think that's something that is not part of my culture.
Right.
And once I visited a parish where the pastor was not around, so I stayed in a room, and it happened that that room was the room of a cat. He fixed everything. It was fine.
Right, you talk about that in the book.
Yes, but I couldn't really sleep well because the cat was meowing all the time around. Yeah, so that is the new culture in which I am, and I understand it.
Right.
Yes, that's it.
You say one of the biggest challenges Catholic parents and Cameroonian parents in particular face in America is the external influence of the new media. You go on to say new media often embraces non-Catholic values and unfortunately plays a much bigger role in the way children grow to see the world than many of us would like. Then you go on and say, and this has to do with how the book was put together, I administered a questionnaire to children in Cameroon and the United States to tap their understanding of marriage, family, the impact of the new media on traditional family values.
Yes.
The answers were extremely revealing. So how long was the questionnaire, and how was it done in the United States as opposed to in Cameroon?
Okay, the questionnaires, I administered them in some Catholic school in the United States. It took about 3 weeks to do that. I spoke with the administrators, and in Cameroon, it took about 2 weeks to do that.
How many questions were in the questionnaire?
There were over 20 questions,
okay.
Some to the students and others to the parents. Yeah.
One of the things that struck me in looking through and you have a whole section here, let me just jump to that, where the cultural analysis, Cameroon and the USA.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of it is, you can understand family differences, and I think sometimes in the United States it seems a little more obvious of where people are coming from. But one of the things that was interesting, and you show the differences between the cultures, how they react to the same questions. But the one that surprised me the most was marriage is a burden, staying single is better. Now, if I said that, people would say, who said that, the Americans or the Cameroonians? People here would say, oh, of course, the United States, but it wasn't. It
wasn't. Right. That was really revealing to me. I read it in New York Times, that some soaps in like North Korea, they portray that marriage is a burden and staying single is okay. And so young people are beginning to imbibe that. They're believing in that. And you won't imagine, in my questionnaire, about 20% of young people in Cameroon, they say marriage is a burden. Staying single is better. That is what they watch on those shows, on TV programs and things like that. And parents have to understand that the impact of repeated exposure is far, far more than what they imagine. Because the more you expose yourself to certain shows and TV programs that don't reflect your value, the more you begin to see reality.
Well, you even talk about violence and aggression in children specifically.
Exactly. Violence.
Have you seen that in Cameroon as well?
It is not common in Cameroon, but it is common here. Like I related a story of a young man who shot another because he wanted a particular brand of shoes from him.
The Nike story, I think it was.
Yes, exactly. So that is the impact of the media and the commercials. So it's important.
Well, you say a fundamental part of a child's cognitive development is communication through imitation.
Yes, exactly. So they are like sponges. They want to imitate what they see. So studies have shown that the more they are exposed to those things, maybe pornography and all of that, the more they perceive them as the truth and as a way of life. And it has become like that to some people.
Right, and you point out the statistics show that there's a pattern. Children absorb what they watch on television, what they hear on radio, and you go on, I'll jump down, it says kids with higher exposure to sex on television almost twice as likely as kids with lower exposure to initiate sexual relations.
Yes. That is why it is important for parents to monitor the social activities of their children, especially online. My research shows that where parents monitor their kids, they do better. They are not exposed to some of these immoral sites that don't promote their values. But where they don't monitor them, many of those children, they believe in gay marriage, marriage is a burden and things like that. So monitoring their activities. That's why part of my work is on the role of the parents. The family is the domestic church. Good families, good churches. So no matter how busy parents are, please discuss the media with your kids. Know their interests. Know the sites that they visit and talk about it with them. We cannot monitor them 24/7.
And the church sees the parents as the main educator overall of their children.
Yes.
That's not necessarily how many governments view the role these days. The government likes to intercept itself and inject itself into that relationship,
because of their own policies and what they want to promote and not the truth.
You also talk about here, something we hear about a lot, cyberbullying. You say everyone experiences conflict during adolescence, but true cyberbullying is more than playground teasing, offensive comments, or simply not getting along. So do you run into much cyberbullying in Cameroon?
That was also a strange concept to me. It is not common in Cameroon, at least at the time I left. But I'm sure because of globalization, media influence, there will come a time when we'll also face that as Cameroonians. Yes, because we are getting so much into it right now.
You say over 80% of the children surveyed felt positive about friending or following their ministers on Facebook, Twitter, and other social media networking sites. This data proves that social media is an invaluable tool in evangelization. By having an active presence on social media, priests and pastors would get to know more about the mindsets and concerns of the youth. So again, it always goes to show that our Lord doesn't let us have things that can't be used for good. They just can be used for evil as well.
Exactly. That particular aspect of my survey is to tell pastors that we got to be involved. It is not enough to tell the kids or to announce in church, don't watch this. But you as a pastor, you got to be involved. Go on social media, sometimes say something about your homily. You may not publish the entire homily. So many of our young people today, we want to friend and follow us on social media. So let us be present. Remember, I talked about Jesus Christ himself as the perfect communicator. He met the people where they are. He spoke the language of the people. Pope Francis, so many retweets. He meets the people where they are. So all of us, pastors as a church, we got to be involved because the children want to follow us. They want to hear what we are saying. Every time that I go on social media, I see something, many of my followers, they comment on it. That is evangelization. So let us make good use of the media. I have talked about the 11th commandment to young people. Thou shalt not misuse the social media. Yes, that's my 11th commandment to young people. Yes.
Well, you say in a chapter here, New Meaning in Christian Family, later on in the book, the African Christian family, amidst these challenges, and you had just gone through the whole list in this survey, the African is also called to conversion. Only an African family that has been evangelized can live up to the calling of marriage and family life. This would require giving up fatal traditional practices that do not foster the dignity of women and girls as created in the image and likeness of God.
Good. In Africa, we are facing a real challenge as far as marriage is concerned. Even though Pope Benedict has said Africa is the spiritual lung of humanity, and the context in which the Pope was saying that is because we celebrate life, we love life, and then the church in Africa is thriving.
It's growing.
It's growing.
Unbelievably, right.
Regarding marriage and family life, the first thing, we still have instances of forced marriages. I gave the example of a 17-year-old who was forced to marry a 70-year-old man because her father wanted to sponsor her brother in school. So women in some places are used as a piece of property.
I see.
And then 16-year-old getting married to a 60-year-old because the dad was owing him a cow. So forced marriages is still a problem. And then sterility, procreation. Marriage is for mutual love and procreation. But in some African cultures, where there is no procreation, they make the marriage useless, invalid. So children are a gift from God. So I want my African people to understand that marriage is still valid, even when children are not part of it. If it doesn't happen, if it's not the fault of the man or the woman, it is okay. We can have adoption, we can do charity, orphanages, and things like that. So marriages should not be invalidated because of lack of procreation. And then the influence of in-laws also, mother-in-laws, father-in-laws, they want to have a lot of influence on their children, which is not good. So that's why we in Africa, we also need to be evangelized.
Well, it just goes to show that all of us have things that are strong about our cultures and other things that aren't so, and we can all learn from each other. And that it's not like, sometimes there's this mythic idea that somehow there was this perfect situation at one time and then society has destroyed that. But the reality is that these things, original sin allows all these different things to happen just in different ways at different times.
That's why I want Africans to understand that there is no superior culture in the world. Before we started this program, you mentioned something about Africans or Cameroonians who go back home and they want to behave like Americans. We should cherish
you have that on chapter 6. I just got to ask that. Right, exactly.
So the problem with us Africans is we don't cherish our cultures. Meanwhile, there are certain aspects of our cultures that Americans love a lot. For example, our family life, the way we relate with each other. And then the fact that our kids go online to do their homework, for emails, they don't spend so much time online. So that family aspect, that we are able to take care of our elderly, Americans will love that. That our young people are the heart of our church. Go to our churches. Many young people, the choirs are full, and many parents in America will want their children involved in church, as we do in Africa. But when they come here, they want to throw their cultural values aboard.
And it's not even just the style, but it's also, they say, why do they speak and behave like Westerners when they visit home? Why are they not committed to religious observances, such as church attendance and other spiritual activities, same way they were when they used to live here? Why is the path to divorce so easily trodden abroad? Why are extended family members not closely knit out there? Why do they have few kids?
Exactly. In Africa, like I come from a family of 9, we have big families. And when they come over here, I understand that the pressure that they got, I mean, they have to pay bills and this and that. But I want African families not to lose sight of certain values in spite of the pressure that they face in the United States. And they should not just embrace everything here, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yes, there is so much that we can learn from your culture, but at the same time, it is important for us to cherish our cultural values. Especially marriage, love, and life, and family. Yes.
Now, your priestly motto is, I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. Why did you pick that?
Because I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. As a seminarian, I had to go through a lot of difficulties. Some of the mission stations where I worked, I had to work for like 6-7 hours to evangelize and all that. And so that is the scriptural passage that helped me. I wasn't sick for once. I believed that Christ was with me. And so from then, that became my motto, even in the priesthood. I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. There was a time that we had serious crisis in our church, and some of the Christians were not welcoming because they are taking side with some other person and things like that. But I was able to go through all of that because I believe Christ was with me. So walking for hours upon hours and meeting the people, celebrating with them, it wasn't easy, but it was so joyful. Yes. So
now your future, you're going to end up going back at some point to Cameroon, right?
Yes. So actually, I'm here to study, and through my studies, my bishop hopes that I'm going to incarnate EWTN somehow in my diocese, and also to help others through seminars to know more about the use of social media and other forms of communication. Even right now, while here, I still work with the priest who is in charge of communication in my diocese. I recently moved to a new diocese, the Diocese of Kumba. You have always known me as a priest of the Diocese of Boya.
Right.
So Kumba was created recently by Pope Francis.
Oh, okay.
It was carved from my former Diocese of Boya. So now I've moved into Kumba. Kumba is very challenging, mostly rural settlement, a place where most families live on less than $2 a day and things like that. And the priests have to walk a couple of hours, sometimes 4 or 5 hours, in order to reach the people. So it is really pastorally challenging. And I've been in touch with my bishop. He asking for the prayers of EWTN and all of you because he's got a lot of challenges, starting from crash.
Well, that we can certainly offer. And thank you so much for this very interesting work. New Media and the Christian Family, Experiences from the USA and Africa by Father Wilfred Emeh, a good friend of EWTN, available through our EWTN Religious Catalog, EWTNRC.com. Join us next time right here on Bookmark. Thank you.